Welcome to Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. I'm your host, Scotty B. My next guest, you may say, makes the cosplay world go round. From planning concepts to creating stunning photos, this award-winning photographer has produced some of the most amazing works I've seen in the industry today. Outside of cosplay, he shot everything from weddings to wildlife, and it's clear he has a passion to capture the moment that lives in every shot. An officer and a gentleman in every sense of the word, a true hero of cosplay. Please welcome Jeff Jenkins.
Ooh, thank you so much. It was an amazing introduction. Definitely setting the bar high for me to keep up with.
Well, I think you set a very high bar for us, Jeff. So before we get started, I do want to extend a very special thanks to you and to all veterans for their service. We're definitely in debt to what you do and your service to the Army as a combat infantry veteran. So thank you. Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Usually, the beginning of the show, we usually talk about origins, but I would like to see if I could do a shameless plug for C2E2, the show coming up here in Chicago,
Sure.
and if we can talk about how you're going to be involved and how the event's going to go and where we can find you and just all the details.
I gotcha. Well, this will be my first C2E2 ever and my first trip to Chicago. Back when I first started shooting cosplay, one of my first cosplay shoots was with Vixie Cosplay down near Orlando. And after we had shot, she traveled to C2E2, and just some of the things, some of the shots that she was able to get there, and the event looked like a great time. I know that convention center is, I think, the largest in the U.S. I think the second one is the Orlando convention for MegaCon Orlando. But it definitely looks like a blast, and I'm super stoked to go for the first time ever. I'm driving up from Nashville, so it's gonna be it's like a 7-hour drive. But it'll be fun. It's worth the road trip. I will have a special guest with me on the road trip, so stay tuned to the Instagram stories for that one. I'm doing online bookings right now through my Instagram. You can go on there and tap book, and you're able to pick a time slot, the 30 minutes, 15 minutes, 60 minutes, whichever one you prefer, whatever day. I'll be there all weekend. This is my first time accepting pre-bookings, just because in the past I've kind of just gone with the flow and shot when and where I wanted to. But I figured with C2E2, I'll try and plan it out a little bit and, schedule me a lunch break, which I've never taken before at conventions. So it usually gets pretty hectic, and trying to stay hydrated and grab a bite to eat is a good thing. And, but yeah, I'm super stoked for C2E2, and it's going to be a great time.
Yeah, it's always an awesome show. I'm so glad you're going to be able to be there, and you'll be able to work with cosplayers at the event. And anybody listening, you need to check out Jeff Jenkins while you're there. Make sure, book with him, go to his website. We'll get into all the plugs and everything at the end of the show, but definitely check out the notes and check him out, and check out C2E2. We don't get paid to plug the show, but it's always a really cool event. I went last year, and actually that's how I got started with cosplay, and that was my inspiration to start the show. Was at that event, so it's a magical place.
Nice. All right. I'm gonna stop you right there. I mean, definitely appreciate you starting up the podcast, because there's a few podcasts out there, but I definitely am excited for what you've started and what you're building on here. So I think it's going really well, and I think it's going to go great.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I mean, thank you for reaching out and for coming on the show. I know a little bit about your work, and I've looked through a lot of your photos, just from the people that I know in cosplay and what they've shared. But if you wouldn't mind, would you like to share your origin story and how you got started in photography?
Yeah, definitely. Was never really a photographer for my whole life. I mean, it was kind of a recent thing that came up. Back in second grade, I remember me and my parents, we sent in some proofs of purchase to get my first 35 millimeter camera. And I mean, everything that I shot was completely blurry with no composition whatsoever. A lot of it was, you know, friends at school and Ninja Turtle figures. Um, but then you jump forward to 2016. Me and my wife were living in Florida, and there was a Black Friday sale for a kit camera. And we had just had a photographer come out to the house and do photos of us and our dogs. We have 3 dogs, and it was $200 for her to come out and shoot just the photos, and that's before any editing whatsoever. We didn't get anything out of that. It was just for her to shoot, and I figured, well, we live out in the middle of nowhere. If I get a camera, I can just do the photos myself and, you know, save a lot of time, and we can shoot whenever we want to. So we went and got the Black Friday deal for the kit camera and jumped on YouTube and Google and searched everything possible. And that's how I learned everything that I know today. There's a lot of photographers out there that inspire me, such as Manny Ortiz and Peter McKinnon, some amazing photographers. Manny Ortiz for his portrait work and lighting control, and Peter McKinnon for his ability to keep pushing the boundaries and, you know, keep teaching himself new techniques and keep learning, always keep learning. But rest of me is, as far as origin story goes, is I grew up in Central Florida, and back in 2001, after 9/11, I decided I was going nowhere with my job. I was working as a cook at Chili's, and decided to, you know, go in with a neighbor of mine that was going back into the military. So I jumped into the Army, went infantry, went airborne, and I had a Ranger contract, and got injured in airborne school. So that dropped me to needs of the Army. And so that's how I ended up at Fort Carson, Colorado, with the 4th Infantry Division out there. And shortly after getting there and getting accustomed to the base and the altitude in Colorado, we got orders to deploy to Iraq. So I was in Iraq for the initial push in 03, and stayed there until April 04.
Wow. Okay.
And so and 05 came, and didn't really feel like staying in. I felt like I had done my time, and felt like I could probably do a lot more things in the outside world than staying in the military. So sometimes I kick myself in the butt for that, because I would have been able to retire here in a couple of years out of the military. But it's gone great. You know, now I'm a project manager for a construction company here in Nashville. Business is booming. There's tons of people moving to Nashville every day, and there's buildings going up left and right downtown. So
oh yeah, it's growing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And we live out here about 40 minutes west of Nashville, and nice 2.5 acres fenced in with 3 dogs, great house, and just living life. And now I have to travel to more conventions, because being in Florida, there's a ton of great conventions there. But definitely looking forward to traveling some. I traveled to Dragon Con last year, which was a great time.
Oh yeah, that was a really good event. I meant to go. I would have, but it just kind of fell apart towards the end. But I heard a lot of good things about it, and I do know a couple of photographers that went there. Actually, I'll just shout Roberto Blake. I don't know if you know who he is or anything that he's about, but just a photographer that I know from other things from YouTube. But he was actually there.
I don't think I've met him. There were definitely a ton of great photographers there. I know John Kim, Ryan Sims, Breland Photography is Brian. We all took over the rooftop at the Hilton and just kind of shot all day, which was pretty fun. It was a great time.
It's very cool, and you know, I guess living in Nashville, it sounds like it's been a really good adjustment. I know that you've done some shoots with the Nashville Night and a few others, but I'm curious. Photography is not your full-time gig, but so it does have a lot of meaning for you. So what is photography for you, and when did cosplay become part of the subjects that you shoot? And how has that helped you grow with your photography?
Sure. I mean, photography to me is it's my artistic outlet. You know, the day to day doing project management for a construction company. There's a lot of engineering involved and a lot of stress and meetings and headaches. So it's nice to have that artistic outlet for me. Cosplay came into it back in Florida, because being near all the theme parks, there's a ton of cosplayers in the area. You know, they all work in cast members at the park, and cosplay on the side. But I had reached out to friends and neighbors, and I did photo shoots for them, and I kept wanting to push and do more and shoot more. So I had reached out to Danny Christina. She cosplays Wonder Woman down there in Central Florida, and that was my first cosplay shoot ever. After I upgraded my camera from the kit camera and wanted to get out there, I found some old sugar mill ruins down in Kissimmee, Florida. So I sent her a message and contacted her, and she was interested in shooting. We met up down there at the sugar mill ruins, and it was a great time.
Hmm.
It
Yeah,
definitely it definitely sparked something in my artistic side, being able to bring cosplay to life in still form, and it gave me a lot more to work with whenever you're considering if you're working with families. Most of them it's going to be a pose for the family photo shoot, but when you're working with cosplayers, there's so many more avenues you can go with posing, with action shots, with bringing in props,
hmm
lighting control, lighting techniques. There's a lot more things that go into it that I enjoy. And being in the military previously, I do have PTSD. So photography, I actually found was a great anti-drug. The VA, they want to pump out drugs for the vets, but I found photography to be a nice, relaxing thing that kind of just made everything fade away.
hmm
Instead of focusing on everything around me, I was able to, just stop, focus on what I'm taking a picture of, and that was it. And it was such a relief whenever that came along, and it's been great ever since. I'm kind of addicted now, so I'm always reaching out to Nashville Night and seeing when we can try and set stuff up and shoot. And there's some other cosplayers in the Tennessee area that I'm always trying to reach out to and shoot as much as I possibly can, because, like I said, it's that outlet. That's that nice, relaxing, get away from the everyday.
it's where you find your calm.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. It's kind of how the podcast is with me. I always get real pumped to do the shows,
Yeah.
but it's just a really good place to be. I like doing the editing,
Hmm.
and I always feel like I'm learning. So
Sure.
that's
Yeah.
like the most important. And it seems like that kind of resonates with you too. Like it's a place where you can get involved with all these different creative ways to connect with the subject. You're always finding really cool places to do the shoots. That it comes up. Even the first shoot that you did, it was Danny that you
Yes,
worked
Danny
with.
Christina.
Yeah, so even the first one, you're like, oh, let's. But that was one that you came up with. You're like, oh, this is a really cool place to do this. We should we're just going to put these together and put together this amazing shoot.
Oh
And
yeah.
in my opinion, they've all turned out just amazing.
Thank you.
I've scrolled through. I mean, just going through like Nashville Nights feed as an example.
Hmm.
Every shot, it's just they're just so good. I actually prefer it over the movies. So I think I've told him that too. Like, you're actually Batman, Nash.
Yeah.
So, um, but you've
He
you've
is.
shot
He keeps that persona. He nailed it.
but you've shot so many amazing cosplayers, and I hear very very good things, just great things. A lot of compliments on your photography. Nashville Night, Bass Mateo, Liz Wonder, Roof and Cosplay. Actually, she's local here in Chicago.
Mhm.
Fireforged, he's a lot of
Oh, yeah.
fun. Mina Kess, House Cosplay, and of course Codename Citadel, and everybody's seen her on the show. Well, they've heard Liz on the show as well,
Yes.
but the list just goes on and on and on. Um, I guess it's amazing that you find the time to work with some of the cosplayers. Now, I guess now that they find you, do you usually see that they're going to your website, or do they just know you from the conventions and they're like, oh, okay, he's really good to work with. Let's just
Mhm.
keep the momentum going, or like how does the whole creative process go?
Well, earlier in the beginning of my Instagram page, that's the majority of where all my content is all through Instagram.
Hmm.
Um, the website I try and keep somewhat neutral because I still do family shoots and weddings, and if I load the website up with cosplay photos, people are going to come to my website and be like, oh, well, he only does that, so I'm not going to book him. So I usually put everything on Instagram, and that's where I handle all my communications as well. Mostly is all through Instagram DMs. So much earlier in my venture into cosplay photography, I would just send out DMs to local cosplayers. I would search the hashtags, Florida cosplayer or Orlando cosplayer, and just try and locate people and see if they want to meet up and shoot. And 9 times out of 10, I wasn't charging at all. It was just having fun and collaborating, just to get some content. Because most of the time, the content is just as valuable as getting paid to do the shoot. It's great having the content to put out there and share, and it also feeds my artistic side. I'm able to get in there and edit and share everything I come up with. And then later on, it turned into word of mouth. And at conventions that I went to in Orlando at MegaCon, I had sent an email to Joni Brosis out of Utah, and she sent me a message back and was interested in shooting. So we shot at MegaCon. That was one of the first bigger names that I've ever shot with, was Joni Brosis. And we did a jumping shot out on the walkway at the Orlando MegaCon, and it took like 300 pictures to get the jump right, to capture her in midair just the way we wanted it to be, without her hair in her face or the hair all the way up, or it was a process, but it was a great time. And then ever since then, it's just word of mouth. And I can't say it enough that I'm blessed to know so many amazing people in this community. Everyone that you named, they're all fantastic people, and I cherish their friendship and the ability that I've had to work with them over the past couple of years.
Yes, and see, cosplayers are really nice people. So I think I don't know if there's really a stereotype that they're not, but we're all regular people. It's something that we can all come together and that we can share together. It's just a really fun network of people, and it's a really, and again, like the whole reason for the podcast is to create that sort of safe space for everybody to come together, network, and share their stories. And I feel like that's it's a very warm, open space for the most part. I know there's always a dark side to everything, but the people that I've met, and of course you, Jeff, really just very warm, open. Of course, we're casual. I'm wearing my Captain America T-shirt, so
yeah, it's bad. Over the past year, there's a couple of photographers that have been outed for certain things, and it casts a lot of negativity on cosplay photographers. And it's just one of those things I always tell every cosplayer I work with, even if it's me, I don't care, bring someone with you. Make sure it's a safe environment. Vet the photographer before you work with them. Vet me. I don't care. Talk to people that I work with. Talk to the people that they've worked with, and get a background story on them before you just go and work with them. Because safety and comfort, that's the main thing that needs to take place during a shoot.
No, absolutely. I mean, if I think you get a lot more out of it if everybody knows what it's about, and it sounds like you're generally really prepared for a shoot, and you've got a really good idea of what you want to do and how you're going to work with the person, how you're going to collaborate with the cosplayer, or actually with anyone that you might be working with. Would you mind? Is there a particular shoot? See, I would go to the Gotham shoot because that's the one I'm most familiar with. I love that shoot. Of course, everybody who's involved. But like, would you like to take us through? You could take us through Gotham, or one that you really felt or really looked at as a really cool shoot that you work on, and just walk us through that whole shoot and what went into it. It'd be great.
Yeah, we can go through Gotham. There's a website that they have venues here in Nashville that you can actually go on there and you can book it by the hour. So Nashville Night and I, we had been talking for a while, trying to put something together, a big group shoot, and it just worked out to where everyone was available right after Dragon Con. So everyone came back from Dragon Con, and I think it was that Monday or Tuesday, right after, we met up at this location, and it had the jail cells and the old, police detective desks, the interrogation room, and it was perfect for it, especially having a Joker, Batman, Robin. I mean, it was amazing. Having Brandon there was awesome. It's always a party with Fireforged.
Yes,
um,
I know that.
yeah, but it was a great time with everybody there. We worked through, starting at one end and moved to the other side into the interrogation room. And I always leave it open during the shoots to anyone that comes up with ideas. I'm down to shoot whatever. So it's all about having fun, and I don't try and be too organized. And there's a few shots that I would want to get, but the rest of it's just an open flow. Have a good time. We just have to speed it up a little bit because the renting the venue for 2 hours definitely hinders us a little bit. But the location was great. We got there first thing, all met up, talked through what we want to do, and then everybody started getting suited up and moved through all the different locations. And it was a great time, and the content was phenomenal.
Oh yeah, yes. And you have a lot of it saved in your Instagram. I think you have it as a highlight on
Mhm.
there. So if anybody
Oh yeah.
wants to check out just some of the things that went on, and there were a lot of just really cool shots that came up from that. Uh, it's too bad they can't do that in the movies sometimes. But
I definitely want to do more of those. There's quite a few venues out here that I would like to rent and get some more people involved. But the cosplay community in Nashville is a little bit smaller than Central
mhm.
Florida, so it makes it a little bit tougher.
But you do such a good job in the space that you're in, and I know it's a little different to do a location shoot, which Gotham definitely was, versus going to a con, Dragon Con, MegaCon, C2E2, a few that we've already mentioned. So how do you prepare for a shoot when you have to travel and you have to get all your gear ready and bring all that with you, find a place to set up? I mean, those are kind of the general ideas, but like how do you get all that together?
Well, I found a checklist is always good to have. So I'm sure probably a lot of cosplayers would agree with me. Set up a checklist for everything you have to pack if you're traveling to a convention. I've got to get all my batteries charged. I've got to package all my lenses up that I'm taking, my external hard drive, my lighting stands. Everything I have to get packed up and ready and charged, and then have all my chargers. So in the hotel, I can set everything up every night so it can all recharge, and I can take all the stuff off my memory cards and free them back up again for the following day. It's definitely it's definitely a chaotic time a couple of days prior to traveling, especially if I'm flying, like I do down to MegaCon. I was a guest there last year, and they asked me to be a guest this year as well. So I'll be
Awesome.
I'll be flying down there in April to go back to MegaCon, and with the bag limitations and making sure that your weights are right for flying, it's definitely a little bit hectic. Um, but I picked up a travel golf bag off of Amazon for pretty cheap, and that's where I put all my lighting stands and everything in there, and all my delicate electronics go with my camera bag, and that's a carry-on. So it's definitely got it down to a science already. So otherwise, it's crazy. The C2E2 driving up is definitely much easier because I can store everything in the rental car that I got and just drive it up, and so that'll be easier. But at conventions, it's definitely a struggle sometimes because that convention lighting is definitely harsh. It's that
Hmm.
fluorescent lighting that's in there. So you definitely have to make sure you have control over all your lighting and make sure your strobes are good to go so that you get the nice soft lighting and that so it doesn't look like it was photographed in a convention hall. I always try to make that my priority is I want to make it look like it was shot in a studio.
Hmm. And I
And
know some people set up in their rooms. They'll move the furniture around and they'll set up a little area that they can use as kind of like a photo booth. And I know people also do it on the convention floor. They'll kind of like find their own space where there's a
mhm.
lot of natural light. And yeah, it kind of takes that feeling of being inside of a almost like a department store away from what you're doing.
Right.
It could be rough. But I mean, the shots that I do see coming from the conventions themselves, again, they're pretty seamless. It's just really cool. So I hope everybody will go and check them out. and we will get to that part of the show where we do the shameless pitches for everything, and we make sure that there's enough people that are as interested in this as I am, because it's just really cool. It always comes together so well. I do have always the part of the show. It's a little bit like a game show. I know I ask a lot of questions, but it's the three questions that I always ask. One's always the same. Two are a little bit goofy. So if you're down for it, I will.
Yeah.
I'll shoot off the first question here. All right. So this is a role reversal question. You're the cosplayer, and you want to work with a photographer. So who do you cosplay as, and which cosplayer do you book to be your photographer?
That was definitely a tough one because I've never really even gotten into thinking about cosplaying. I know a lot of people tell me eventually it's going to happen, but
Yes, we all do. We turn to the dark side.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm sure eventually the day will come. But I guess I would do, I don't know, maybe a Thor or there's a Bjorn from Vikings. There's a TV show on history. Um, it would have to be something to take advantage of my beard because that's not coming off. So it took me way too long to grow it. So it had to be something to take advantage of the beard and work that in there. As far as a photographer, I'd probably say my buddy Peekapool Vents or Colossal Smidgen.
Oh
Probably
yeah.
because they always keep coming up with ideas during a shoot. They never run out of pose ideas or things to incorporate into the shoot. They're always a great time, and some great friends of mine. And I feel like I would definitely need way more direction being on that side of the camera. So I would definitely go with one of them too, and yeah, it'd be a great time.
So we'll keep that in mind. I think we'll see if we can get you a Thor hammer just so we can do
Right.
the effects for
Game on.
that'd be very cool. My second question, if you could travel to any location that you haven't been to for photography, and this is because you do a lot of wildlife and you do a lot of I guess what would be the maybe perspective. I'm not too familiar with the
Landscapes.
term landscaping,
Yeah.
landscapes. So any location that you haven't been for photography, which place would you most want to go to
Mhm.
shoot?
It's always been a dream of mine to travel abroad to Iceland to shoot some of the landscapes there and the waterfalls. And there's the Black Beach with the airplane crash. It's such a beautiful location. I see a lot of it in some of Peter McKinnon's earlier videos on YouTube,
Mm.
and it's just such a beautiful location to capture that would be the dream trip for me for landscape photography. To get a drone and get out there and just shoot some awesome landscapes. Um, as far as if I was to travel for a convention or to shoot cosplay, I would definitely say I'd love to travel to a large convention in like Ukraine or Russia or UK. There's some amazing cosplayers over there. The detail and the just the work that goes into their cosplays. I would love to tap into that and just be able to capture some of that, if even for a short time. I'm sure that would be definitely an experience. And so, of course, the landscapes um, for an on-location shoot over there would be phenomenal as well. Imagine shooting with the Kremlin behind you, or something like that. It would
Oh
it'd be
yeah,
pretty crazy.
yeah, that'd be
Um,
very cool.
yeah, I mean that would be amazing. That'd be a dream shoot, definitely.
Awesome. And my final question, and I guess I've worked with a couple of cosplayers internationally, Lady Canary Cosplay, Cumbermatch. So MCM is a pretty big event there, and I think they actually have like a runway or a catwalk where the cosplayers actually walk back and forth in the middle of the event, and they all get shot. It might have been the Dutch Comic Con,
That would
but
be
it's
awesome.
just a lot of like just cool stuff for photographers to get involved with there.
Definitely.
Uh, so the final question,
Hmm.
and it's always sad because it means that I'm wrapping up the show. And I know I haven't covered nearly as many things as I want to, and I've always got a ton of questions for my guests, and it's the case here. But again, so appreciate you being on the show, Jeff,
Thank
and
you.
everything that you shared. There's just not enough time in the world, and of course, I always want to be very mindful of your time because it's not what you do every day. This is for all of us. This is a kind of a thing that we do as a hobby or an interest. It's a passion, and I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to dial in and to be here with me.
Of course. No, thank you. I definitely appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak to people that might not have heard of me before, and speak to friends of mine that do listen to the podcast also. So it's definitely appreciated, and I definitely appreciate what you're doing in running this podcast.
Thank you very much, sir. So the last question is, what do you want your impact on the world to be?
Hmm. Well, definitely wasn't sure earlier in my venture, but the at Dragon Con this past year, I had a photographer come up to me, and he approached me, and I was wearing my branded baseball jersey that says my Jeff Jenkins Photography on it. So he approached me and said that he was a newer photographer, but my work had inspired him to get into it, and that was a completely humbling thing to happen right there towards the end of Dragon Con. To realize that I actually inspired someone else to pick up a camera and get out there and start shooting. Um, I would say that what I want my impact to be is to never stop learning, to keep pushing, even if you don't think you have a hobby, pick up something and try it. It's trial and error. You're gonna fail. You're always gonna fail, multiple times until you get going. So I would just say, never let education be a hurdle. Embrace it. Never stop learning.
That's perfect. I love that. Awesome. All right. Where can we find you, and how can we support you? Where can we find you?
Well, of course, always on Instagram at Jeff Jenkins Photography, all together, no underscores, as well as on Facebook, same thing, Jeff Jenkins Photography. Twitter, someone beat me to it, so it's J Jenkins Photo for the time being until I can talk them into letting me have that the username. Apparently, he picked up photography before I did, so I've also picked up. I started a YouTube channel. It's very early days. It's a little bit more difficult to turn that camera around and bring it into video when I'm so used to shooting still form. There's a lot more things to take into account whenever I'm shooting video, as far as audio and reverb and compression and everything that has to go in this room. I'm actually setting up now studio audio panels, sticking those all to the wall so I can try and dim down the reverb in here a little bit.
No
But
worries.
yeah, I'm trying to get there, because I do want to get that message out there to keep pushing. And, I'd like to see cosplay photography become more of a mainstream genre of photography. It's kind of looked down upon, I think, by professional photographers out there that are shooting weddings and portraits for magazines. But I'd like to see it become a great mainstream genre of photography, because there's so many great cosplayers out there, and the art is definitely there to capture.
It definitely is, and
Yeah.
you do a very amazing job of that. I really do hope that does happen, that it becomes a much more commonly accepted, widely accepted, um, I guess, medium for
Yes.
photographers to capture. Because I mean, it's a billion-dollar industry.
Sure.
It's attached to. I mean, there's a lot going on inside of it. Just I mean, photography is a component, and in my opinion, again, without it, um, it wouldn't be what it is now. If there wasn't someone like Jeff Jenkins out there taking these pictures of the cosplayers for the industry, it wouldn't be nearly as popular as it is.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of what goes into it is your ability to see through that, the to see the potential for what's
Thank
going
you.
on there.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's always a great time to go to conventions and travel, and like I said, there's so many amazing people in this community, and it's such a warm and inviting community. I wish I would have found it sooner. You know,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of great friends from getting into this, so I'm excited to see where it goes.
Absolutely. And of course, you can find Jeff and book with him for photography at C2E2, February 28th to March 1st. So make sure you take advantage of that. It's an amazing guy to work with. So if you're hearing this, it'll be out the day before the convention, and there'll be a lot going on that weekend. So definitely shoot him a message, DM him, and check him out. It'll be a great show, and he is awesome to work with.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be a great time. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, as we wrap up here, this is Scotty B saying goodbye to everybody listening. Thank you so much, and we will talk to you soon. Bye bye.